Throughout the years in the platform fighter space, we've always heard the term Smash clone. But we've heard it so many times in so many different sorts of areas that I don't really think that we can pin it down to one single thing. Over the years, I've definitely noticed that casuals use this term very differently when it comes to different things, and a lot of different opinions that people have will justify how they use the word. For example, let me just give you the list and then we'll break it down from there. The first one would be Smash clone as just another alternative way in order to say platform fighter. The second reason why a person would say Smash clone is just any platform fighter that has an IP attached to it. The third one would be as a derogatory term, used for something like it's just not Smash, so you call it a Smash clone. Now that we have them listed down, let's explain them all. Using Smash clone as a sort of alternative way for platform fighter makes sense in certain regards. It's just weird because of the baggage that this can sort of bring up when you use the term. Especially when it comes to two things. One, the fact that this game is just a clone of Smash, and two, this doesn't really happen in any other fighting game community. Clone seems off because it makes it sound like it's a duplicate. It's something that is just copied. It's not really considered for anything, which can bring a lot of bad taste to a lot of people's mouths. Also, if I were to go to something like social media, say Twitter for example, and say, hey guys, I really like Guilty Gear, it's a pretty good Street Fighter clone, I'm pretty sure I would get a lot of different eye rolls when it comes to that statement. But you see what I mean? When you say Smash clone instead of say platform fighter, it brings this sort of baggage and it brings this sort of negative idea that I don't really think people want to do, but because they've heard it so many times, it's ingrained in their brain. Which is why instead of Smash clone, I just say platform fighter. Because if I give respect to traditional fighters, I would expect the same thing back when it comes to our games. Smash clone for IP. Okay, so this is weird. I've heard things like Rivals of Aether and things like that aren't really Smash clones because they don't really have an IP attached to this sort of thing. Or at least one that's been in the people's brains for a long time in order to just justify making a platform fighter. Which makes a little sense because it would seem like coattailing of what Smash was doing. Oh, you're going to use IPs that people all really like? Then I'm going to do something like Frame Makers where people know of indie genres and we're just going to put them in a platform fighter and sell them as is. Again, it's understandable when you understand the amount of times this has happened. There's been like Frame Makers, as I've already said. There's Multiverses. There's Nick All-Stars Brawl. There's even the Cartoon Network game, honestly. But to really give Rivals of Aether and even Rushdown Revolt the pass just because they didn't use IPs kinda doesn't really make sense to me either, because all of these other different games, even though some of them sucked, a lot of them didn't and have a lot of great mechanics that are way different than Smash that like casuals haven't really tried yet. So using the justification to call a Smash clone just a platform fighter that has good IP doesn't really make sense to me, especially when a lot of these games don't play anything like Smash. I guess we just gotta go to the third and final one, which is just the derogatory term. I've really only seen Smash clone as like a derogatory term in order to really unjustify every single other platform fighter that has ever been in the space. So if it's not Smash, it's just a Smash clone. And if you're a casual that thinks this, I truly feel sorry for you. Pretty much for the fact that even though that there's never going to be an IP or maybe even a developer that puts as much time and effort into something like Smash as any other platform fighter, you're still missing out on a lot of not only great games, but great communities that would already want to teach you the game anyway. And it's true, Smash is the most popular platform fighter ever and will probably stay that way. And you know, it has a budget, it has a good director for it. It kind of makes sense why there wouldn't be another sort of platform fighter that would have these sorts of things. But to put this negativity for other sort of platform fighters that way by demeaning it with Smash clone, it honestly kind of just defeats the purpose of trying. Also, it doesn't make sense because that energy is never done with any sort of other medium ever. I've already brought up things like Street Fighter, but what about shooting games? What if I called Spec Ops The Line just a freaking Call of Duty clone? What if I called something like Overwatch just a TF2 clone? I'm sorry, but people would be mad, and rightfully so. These games are not clones, they are just inspired. So why is it so different when it comes to the platform fighter genre? Why do we keep saying Smash clone even after all this time? Now, I'm not the smartest person in the room, and of course I could be wrong about this, but I think there could be two reasons for why. I think it's the history of platform fighters, and I also think it's the casual retention for these sorts of things. When you look at the history of platform fighters, it hasn't really gotten good until like 2016, maybe 15 when it comes to it. And that's for every single other platform fighter other than Smash, by the way. I'm pretty sure mainstream things such as Cartoon Network and other things such as PlayStation All-Stars really gave a bad impression about how people could actually play platform fighters. This makes sense because fighting games never really had this sort of thing happen to them. After Street Fighter, there was plenty of other different games that took the style very well and made it their own very great, so much so that they made money from it. When you compare that to platform fighters, not so much. It took about, I'd say a decade before we actually got something. I mean, Rivals of Aether counts kind of, but there was only 2 kids. Either way, it took a long time in order for people to understand what platform fighters, or not what, but it took them a lot in order to understand what makes a platform fighter good. So when you have all that time, and you have a lot of casuals that have only either played Smash and still to this day probably consider it not even a fighting game but only a party game, it makes sense of why the sort of mindset to that sort of thing is for every single other platform fighter to just be a Smash clone. And the second part makes a little more sense. Ever since 2010, when the internet started popping off, there's been more and more chances for a minority or a loud minority in order to express their opinions. I would compare this to how it seemed as though Gen 5 back in the day was really hated upon only because a small minority put their opinions out there, only for about a decade later for people to realize, or like the huge group of Pokemon players to realize that it's actually one of the most beloved games of all time. It's kind of like that. Over the years, more and more like decent YouTubers or generic YouTubers that play platform fighters as very casually, or other people that have sort of opinions that, you know, are very weird, like saying it's not a fighting game, for example. Those have propped up more and more throughout like a decade. So when you have that and you keep letting it going throughout all of time, right, there's only going to be more and more of these things out there. And if they say it on YouTube to get their information more, the more that people are going to state their opinion that no, it's not a platform fighter, it's just a Smash clone. A basic TLDR would just be, for a long time, Smash has been the only one that has actually known what a platform fighter needs to be in order to be good, and we didn't get that until a lot later. So that's why there's a lot of different opinions, or a lot of alternative opinions when it comes to not just the name of Smash clone, but also the fact that if it's a fighting game at all. So let's just get this out of the way. Yes, I am biased. I play platform fighters. I call it by that name because I believe that it's appropriate. But it doesn't mean that I hate casuals or that I don't understand them. I did research and I did all these things so that I can potentially understand where other people are coming from with their opinion on this sort of thing. I see this more as an olive branch rather than trying to burn bridges entirely. I call it platform fighter because I respect them, and I feel as though if I give respect to every other sort of genre out there, not even just fighting games, RPGs, the shooting genres, I give respect to all of them. That if we have respect for one thing, we should probably have respect for another. So me, personally, I would think that instead of trying to call something a Smash clone, I would rather just call it platform fighter. But who knows, there's probably additional information out there why people even say Smash clone instead of platform fighter. But if it is, please put that thing in the comment section, you know? I'm not really the type of person in order to get mad at someone like this for anymore. I would rather spend more time understanding how it is and creating a better bridge when it comes to the platform fighter community rather than tearing it down at this point. But other than that, I guess that's it. I'll see you in the next one, alright?